Hi folks. So welcome to the lecture where we learn how to keep equations balanced. Now when we balance equations on the left hand side of the equation, on the right hand side, that should be an or. So let me just replace that quickly. Or the right hand side, okay, that's or the right hand side, we have to make sure that we perform the same operation on both sides. Now for example, if we double the left hand side, then we must at the same time double the right hand side. Okay, so that's how we keep equations balanced, by doing the same thing to the left hand side that we do to the right hand side and vice versa. Now when balancing equations, the aim is to get the unknown variable. Now I really like to stress this with all my students. The aim is to get the unknown variable on its own, on one side of the equal sign, okay, by getting rid of everything around it. So it's just a way to conceptualize it, okay? Your task when you're solving a linear equation is to get the unknown variable, whether it's x or t or y, whatever it is, by itself, by rearranging the equation and getting rid of everything around it. Now, the way to think about it is the last operation that we did to construct the equation. Now, think back to the lectures where we were building expressions. The last operation that we did in order to get the output number is actually the first thing that we have to do, or the opposite of that is the first thing that we have to do to deconstruct it. And we sort of had a look at this in the other lecture where we learned how to solve linear equations using the process of backtracking. Okay, so again, let's have a look at this particular flowchart. We have the original input value of x. Then the next step that we take is minus 5, which takes us to x minus 5. Then we multiply this entire thing by 3, which takes us to 3 bracket x minus 5. Okay, and the output of that is 6. Now, the very first thing that we do, as I just said, to deconstruct this is the opposite of the last thing that we did to construct it. So that would be divided by 3. And then that takes us to 6 divided by 3 to 2. And then 2 plus the 5 takes us back to our original input number of 7. So x equals 7 is in fact the solution to 3 bracket x minus 5 is equal to 6. So x equals 7 is the solution to that. Okay, so now let's put these into action by having a go at a few questions. Okay, so these questions says, solve the following equations. Okay, as simple as that. Let's have a look. So we have A, which is 3g plus 6 is equal to 9. Now I'm going to show you a process here that I like to follow in order to be able to solve these equations by keeping them balanced. Okay, so the way we do it is we are trying to get the g on its own. Like I said, the main aim of solving linear equations is to get the unknown variable, the g in this case, on its own. Now the way we would do that is by getting rid of everything around it. So right now it has the 3 around it, and right now it has the plus 6 around it. So we need to get them over to the other side so that the g remains on its own. Now you might be wondering, what do I take to the first side, or the other side first? Is it the 3 or is it the plus 6? Now I want you to again visualize constructing this particular expression of 3g plus 6. Now the very last thing we would have done to construct it would have been the plus 6. So the very first thing that we do is the minus 6, okay? So that's the plus 6 going to the other side and it becomes a minus, okay? I'll put a little minus sign here. So that makes it into 3g is equal to 9 minus 6, okay? Which means that 3g is equal to 3. Then pretty much the only thing that's left at this point is the number 3. So we take that to the other side. That makes it into a division, because remember, this is 3 times g on this side, and the opposite of times is division. So when we take the multiplication to the other side, it becomes a division. So that turns it into g equals 3 divided by 3, which is equal to 1. So the value, or the solution to 3g plus 6 equals 9 is g equal to 1. All right, let's have a look at part B now. I want to put a little bit of a line here. So part B is 4x minus 6 is equal to 6. All right, so let's test this out. Once again, we have to take the minus 6 over to the other side because it's the last operation we would have done to construct that expression. So taking it to the other side, it becomes a plus, because remember, the opposite of minus is a plus. Or the other way to look at it is when you're deconstructing back from the output towards the input, the very first operation you would do is the opposite of the minus 6, which is obviously plus 6, okay? So that becomes 4x is equal to 6 plus 6. So 4x is equal to 12. Then the next step that you have to take is taking the 4 over to the other side, and obviously it becomes a division because it's a multiplication on the left hand side. So on the right hand side it would be a division. So that turns it into x is equal to 12 divided by 4. And 12 divided by 4 is simply 3. So the value or the solution to 4x minus 6 equals 6 is x equal 3. Alrighty, now moving into part C. So part C tells us 4 bracket r plus 1 is equal to 16. Okay, now you have a couple of options here. Now first option is we can simply multiply this through. So we can multiply this bracket using the distributive law that we learned about. So, 4 times r, 4 times 1, etc. So we can expand it out. Or we can simply take the 4, which would have been the last operation we would have done when constructing the expression of 4 bracket r plus 1 over to the other side as a division, okay? So that turns it into r plus 1, which is what's left on the left-hand side, because the 4 is gone now, is equal to 16 divided by 4. So r plus 1 is equal to 16 divided by 4, which is 4. Then we take the plus 1 over to the other side. It turns it into a minus, and that gives me r is equal to 4 minus 1, which is equal to 3. So r is equal to 3 is, in fact, the solution to this particular equation here. And folks, remember, I'm not doing it because we've already gone through the process of checking solutions using substitution, but I do encourage you to take those values, plug it back into the original equation, and see whether we're getting the right answer. And if we're not, then please let me know, okay? I'm hoping that we are getting the right answers, because remember, I'm doing all of this real time, so there is a slim chance that I'm perhaps picking up the wrong value or picking up the wrong signage, etc. Okay, so let's move into part D now. All right, so let's have a look at this. So we have 2 bracket n minus 5 equals 8. So once again, folks, the very first operation that we have to do to deconstruct the 2 bracket n minus 5 is taking the 2 over to the other side, okay? Because remember, it'll become a division. So it'll become divided by 2 on the other side, because that's the first operation we have to do. That makes it into n minus 5 on the left-hand side is equal to 8 divided by 2 on the right-hand side, okay? Makes it into n minus 5 is equal to 4. Then we take minus 5 over to the other side, and that obviously turns into a plus 5, because remember, the opposite of minus is plus. So n is equal to 4 plus 5, which means n is equal to 9. There we have it. That's our solution to that particular equation. So n is equal to 9. All right, now let's move to part E. We have m minus 2 divided by 4 is equal to 3. So once again, the very last operation we would have done to construct this equation would have been divided by 4. So that's the very first operation that we have to do to deconstruct it. Taking it to the other side, it becomes multiplied by 4. So m minus 2 is equal to 3 times 4. So m minus 2 is equal to 12. And then the next operation we have to do is take the minus 2 to the other side. So it becomes m is equal to 12 plus 2, which is equal to 14. So m is equal to 14 is our final answer. Okay, now let's move into part F. And if you're feeling confident, folks, I would encourage you to have a go at part F on your own to see how you go. Okay, so we have q over 3 plus 8 equals 11. So remember, the last operation we would have done to construct this particular expression of q over 3 plus 8 would have been the plus 8, okay? So that's the first operation that we do to deconstruct it, and obviously on the other side it becomes a minus. So it becomes q over 3 equals 11 minus 8. So q over 3 equals 11 minus 8, which is 3. Then we take the divided by 3 over to the other side, okay? And it becomes a multiplication. So it becomes q is equal to 3 times 3, which is equal to 9. So q equals 9 is the correct answer for this particular equation. So q equals 9, and then this was m is equal to 14. So as you can see, folks, is a fairly straightforward method to solve linear equations. Okay, we just have to be really systematic about it, and we need to be able to visualize what the flowchart will look like when we're building the expressions. And if it's really necessary, you can even draw a flowchart out in the early days to really help you visualize that process. Okay, now let's move into the next set of questions. Okay, so this question says solve the following equations again. So starting with A, we have 6 minus p is equal to 8. Okay, so once again, same process. We have the need to get rid of the 6 and the negative sign in order to get the p on its own. Okay, so the very first thing we need to get rid of is the 6. So we take that to the other side, and that turns it into negative p, which is what's left on the left-hand side, equals 8. Now remember, guys, this is a positive 6. So this is a positive 6 on this side. I should use a different color so it stands out. So that's a positive 6 on this side. So on the other side, it would become a minus 6. Okay? So it becomes negative p is equal to 8 minus 6, which is 2. And then we take, okay, so now negative p is basically like saying negative 1 times p, okay, equals 2. So now we're basically taking the negative 1 and the multiplication to the other side. Now this is where you have to be very careful. Now in this scenario, all we are doing is taking a negative number across. So the sign does not change, because what we are doing is we are doing a multiplication on the left-hand side, which then turns it into a division, so divided by negative 1, okay? So the negative sign only changes, or the signs only change, when we're doing a plus or a minus. In this case, we are doing a division or a multiplication. So if you're taking a negative number to the other side to make it into division, or taking a negative number and taking it to the other side to make it into a multiplication, the sign does not change. Something we really need to remember, because otherwise it really does change our answers. So 2 divided by negative 1 is simply negative 2. Okay? Then moving into the next question here. So we have 13 minus 2s, that's part B, equals the number 7. Okay? So the very first operation we have to do to get the s on its own is take the 13 over to the other side. And remember, this is a positive on this side. And so when we take it to the other side, it becomes a minus, because we're doing a takeaway. So that makes it into 2s is equal to 7 minus 13. So negative 2s is equal to 7 minus 13, which is negative 6. Then taking the negative 2 to the other side. Now remember, negative 2s is simply negative 2 times s. So we're taking the negative 2 over to the other side as a division on the other side. So it becomes s is equal to negative 6 divided by negative 2. Now negative and negative, when divided each other, we get a positive answer. And 6 divided by 2 is the number 3. So s equals 3 is the correct solution to this particular equation. All right, now let's have a look at parts C and D. All right, so we have C. 19 minus 3j is equal to 5. All right, so let's take the 19 over to the other side. Okay, and that turns it into negative 3j is equal to 5 minus 19. Okay, so that makes it into negative 3j is equal to 5 minus 19, which is negative 14. Then we take the negative 3 to the other side this time. And remember, it just turns it into a division. The sign does not change. So that turns it into j, which is what's left on the left-hand side. And then we have negative 14 divided by negative 3. Negative and a negative gives us a positive, and that's simply 14 over 3. Okay, or we can turn that into a mixed fraction, which makes it into 4 2/3. Okay? All right, now let's move to part D. 12 minus 3d is equal to 6. All right, so let's take the 12 over to the other side as a takeaway. So that makes it into negative 3d on the left-hand side, which is equal to 6 minus 12 on the right-hand side. So negative 3d is equal to negative 6. Then we take the negative 3 over to the other side, and it becomes a division, as you can imagine. So this makes it into d is equal to negative 6 divided by negative 3, which gives us a positive 2. So d is equal to positive 2 in this particular case. Now, folks, we've gone through a few of these questions now. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video. And if you need to, go through the first 4 questions again. However, pause the video and have a go at parts E and F yourself, and we'll come back to them in a couple of seconds. All right, so let's have a look at part E. So we have 16 minus 5a is equal to 4. All right, so very first step is to take the 16 over to the other side, make it into a minus, okay? So that turns it into negative 5a is equal to 4 minus 16. Okay, so that makes it minus or negative 5a is equal to negative 12. Then we take the negative 5 over to the other side, okay? And that turns it into a is equal to negative 12 divided by negative 5. A negative and a negative gives us a positive, and that gives us 12 over 5, which is the same as 2/5. Okay? So you can turn it into a mixed fraction as well if you like to really finalize that answer. I hope you were able to get the same answer. Then moving into part F, we have 7 minus 2w is equal to 4. So taking the 7 over to the other side, we get negative 2w, which is equal to 4 minus 7. Now, negative 2w gives us negative 3 on the right-hand side. Then taking negative 2 over to the other side, we get w is equal to negative 3 divided by negative 2. A negative and a negative gives us a positive, 3 over 2, which then translates to 1/1/2. There we have it. So w is equal to 1/1/2, and then a is equal to 2/5. I hope you were able to get the same answer. If not, again, please don't fret, guys, all right? So just go through the lectures. These lectures are available to you all the time, okay? So make sure that you have a go through these lectures as many times as you need it to really help you figure out or understand the methodology behind solving these types of linear equations. So thanks again, folks. Make sure you have a go at the worksheets, and I will see you in the next lecture.